Hi, I'm Ernie Franzen. I'm the Associate Editorial Page Editor of Journal Sentinel. I'm here with Herman Cain, who's visiting with Journal Sentinel editorial writers, reporters, and editors today on his visit to Wisconsin. To his right is Craig Gilbert, our Washington correspondent, and we're going to get started with questions for the candidate.
We've had this furious debate in both Wisconsin and Ohio over collective bargaining and public employee unions, and both states passed laws curtailing collective bargaining for public employees. In Ohio, that law was just voted down by the voters. Do you think that public employees should have collective bargaining?
Yes, but not collective hijacking. Now, what I mean by that is, if they have gotten so much for so many years, and it's going to bankrupt the state, I don't think that's good. And it appears as if in some instances, they really don't care. And so I do believe that collective bargaining, but I think that there should be some flexibility relative to collective bargaining such that it doesn't force a state into bankruptcy.
You're familiar with the law in Ohio that was on the ballot.
The one that was on the ballot,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that one, and I think in that particular case, maybe they tried to get too much out of, tried to get too much, and as a result, it failed. But I do support collective bargaining.
So you think they may have gone too far in this case?
In this case, they may have tried to get too much in one bill.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Would you favor collective bargaining for federal employees?
They already have it, don't they? Yeah, they already have collective.
No, they don't.
They have unions.
They have unions.
They have unions, okay?
But they don't have the same bargaining.
They don't have
powers.
the same bargaining powers. Here again, collective bargaining I support as long as it doesn't create an undue burden on the state, the government, the taxpayer, and this sort of thing. That's the issue. The principle is one thing. The execution of it is something totally different. Hi,
This is James Causey. He's an editorial writer.
James. Are you sir? Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You're up.
You think you're up?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're taking turns. We're taking turns.
Okay.
I'm James Causey, editorial writer and columnist for
Yes.
the paper. My question for you is this. You had a statement where you said during Occupy Wall Street, don't blame Wall Street, don't blame big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself. If that's the case, how would you account for the poverty situation today? Is it people living in poverty's fault? Or how would you expound on it?
It's not people who are living in poverty's fault. If you have an economy that's not growing, 14 million people out of work, millions more underemployed, that's what's keeping people in poverty. The statement that I made wasn't directed at people in poverty. It was directed at people who were occupying Wall Street. Two different groups.
Okay.
That's two different groups. And so I'm saying the people that were participating in Occupy Wall Street should be directing their frustrations at this administration. This administration has failed economic policies, has not grown this economy. This administration spent $1 trillion to stimulate the economy. It didn't. This administration had proposed another $450 billion approximately. The president hasn't been able to get all of that. This administration has put additional legislative burden on businesses with Obamacare. This administration has abused its regulatory power, such as the situation trying to intimidate Boeing to not expand in South Carolina. This administration is where that frustration ought to be directed, not at Wall Street. Now, did Wall Street and the banks have something to do with the meltdown of 2008? Yes. But, they are not the culprit to the wealth gap. They're not the culprit. Failed policies of this administration.
Do you, just one follow-up to that, I mean, there is a lot of data indicating that the wealth gap and the income gap are growing in this country. Do you have a strategy beyond generating more economic growth overall, do you have a strategy for trying to close the income gap and the wealth gap in this
Yes,
country?
we call them opportunity zones. Opportunity zones will identify cities. Detroit is one that we did a press conference there, where under our new economic growth and jobs plan, they will be allowed some additional incentives in that structure to help them basically empower themselves. Because if you look at where a lot of the poverty is, it's concentrated in some areas of a city, sometimes a whole city. So for example, the 999 plan. The 999 plan, businesses are able to deduct purchases, they're able to deduct capital expenditures, they're able to deduct net exports, which helps us to level the playing field of US made products. But in an opportunity zone, they may also be allowed to deduct some or all of their payroll to give them an additional fighting chance, so to speak. And so those are the kinds of things that we will be able to do. That's the strategy, is to put them in a position that will help attract businesses to these areas, help businesses that are in these areas. And then the other thing about this is we set aside in our analysis money already for the opportunity zones. So this will not take away from the 999 plan, generating a minimum of the revenue that it's collecting from 5 sources. Could I change chairs? This button drop. Yes.
Dan Weiss at the Dan Weiss. Before we go on, I just wanted to clarify the response to Craig. You said, so you're in favor of collective bargaining for federal employees as long as it doesn't burden the taxpayers, is that right?
As long as it doesn't create an undue burden on the taxpayers.
We published some internal records from a couple of nonprofits that Mark and Linda have been affiliated with. I first contacted Mark and Linda in August. You said you didn't know about this issue until recently. Since it's been published,
Which issue?
The nonprofits Prosperity USA
Oh.
and Wisconsin Prosperity Network, where they reported that they, on their internal documents, that your campaign owed them about $40,000, that they had paid money to a group that you gave a speech to, other stuff like that. First, if you hired, it was announced that there was going to be an independent investigator looking into that.
That has been done.
And who is it that you hired?
That's been done. When it's done, then we report on it.
We'd like to know who it is, just to.
No, because then people would be camping out at their doorsteps, and at this point, we want them to do their job.
I swear to God, I won't camp out
No,
at their
no,
doorstep.
nope, not doing it, not doing it.
Is it a Wisconsin firm?
I'm not commenting on that anymore, okay?
Have you looked at this yourself?
I'm not commenting on it anymore.
Why not?
I'm running a presidential campaign.
I know you're running a.
I'm not commenting on this anymore, please. You're wasting time, with all due respect. Can we move
It's
on?
a serious issue.
I know it's a serious issue, sir.
I mean, it's your campaign your campaign chief.
Let me
of
say
staff,
this.
Deputy chief.
Allow
of
me to
staff.
say this. Allow me to say this. An independent law firm is investigating this. If there were any wrongdoing, we will correct it. We happen to think, initially, they're not going to find any major infractions. This is why I don't want to talk about it until after they do their independent study. That's all I'm saying.
You were affiliated with a for-profit with your deputy chief of staff, Prosperity 101. Are you still affiliated with that?
No.
Did you make any money off that?
Do you guys
No.
have another question?
Would you guys please move
You've
on?
already asked 5 times. You said we're gonna talk about a different topic now, so another topic?
No, I did not make any money off of it.
Okay.
Well, we can, let's shift to foreign affairs for a little bit.
Sure.
It's been reported that Iran is pushing its nuclear program and might be close to developing a nuclear weapon.
Excuse me. Who brought me the water that I did not get? Gee.
It's out in the hall. I'm sorry. Would you favor a military strike against Iran to stop that country from developing a nuclear capability?
That's not a practical top-tier alternative, and here's why.
Okay.
If you look at the topography of Iran, where are you going to strike? It's very mountainous. That's what makes it very difficult. Secondly, that would be a decision that would need to be coordinated and discussed with our friends in that part of the world, like Israel. But for the United States to unilaterally go in and attack Iran to try and stop them, I would want to consult with the intelligence community, the commanders on the ground in that part of the world, which I have stated before. But to say that we should, I don't have all the information necessary to make that decision.
What other tools do you think you might use?
Intelligence information, talking to the commanders on the ground in Afghanistan, Pakistan, the people who are there, who are closer to the situation. Those are the tools that I would use.
So would you consider economic sanctions or something along those lines?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would support would be economic sanctions. There are some already in place, but there could be more. It's going to take a coordinated effort of other countries with the United States in order to strengthen the economic sanctions. Secondly, I would supporting the opposition movement there covertly, not to put boots on the ground. The opposition that's trying to overthrow the regime. The people of Iran are not our enemies. It's the regime that's our enemy. And then there's a third thing that I would do. It's not a short-term solution, but it's a solution that would be part of the strategy to contain Iran. As Dr. Henry Kissinger pointed out when I had breakfast with him 2 weeks ago, stopping Iran may be nearly impossible without direct military intervention, if that's the smart thing to do. Containing Iran is a much more practical objective. And the third thing that I would do is get serious about our energy independence strategy here in this country. Energy independence is not only an economic imperative, it is a national security imperative. Because if we are maximizing our energy resources, it's going to impact the price of oil on the world market. Just announcing the plan will cause the price to drop by nearly a third, because speculation drives the price by about a third. As we explore and open up drilling and coal gasification and all of the other resources we have, we'll continue to drive it down. That's how you stop Iran long-term from developing a nuclear program.
This morning, the U.S. Supreme Court signaled that it would look and review the President Obama's health care overhaul program.
Yes.
Your reaction to that and your prediction on what they might do?
I'm thrilled that they are going to take a look at it sooner rather than later, and I'm not going to make a prediction. I leave that to the Supreme Court judges. I can tell you what I hope they say is that major portions of it are unconstitutional, especially the mandate. That's what I'm hoping for.
We were talking a minute ago about the economy and then foreign affairs, with you, Mr. Cain, leading in a lot of the polls. Would you talk for a few minutes about some of the people that you admire that we might see in a Cain administration?
Oh, sure. Dr. Kissinger turned my offer down to be Secretary of State. He said he's perfectly happy doing what he's doing. I've had conversations with Ambassador John Bolton. I've had conversations with people like K.T. McFarland. I've had conversations with people like Senator DeMint. I've had conversations with people like General Jack Chain, used to be head of Strategic Air Command. my administration will have a majority of business people, as well as some seasoned office holders who are not afraid to challenge the status quo. That's the main quality. Thank you. That's the main quality that I'm looking for. Representative Paul Ryan of Wisconsin, I really admire him because of the work that he's done. The fact
Where would
that,
you like to see him?
Pardon?
Where would you like to see him?
In my administration.
At what post?
Well, we got a whole lot of them. You know? I don't want to pin it down at this point. I don't want to get pigeonholed.
He's best known nationally for having proposed a pretty thorough restructuring of Medicare.
Yes,
And a system where we go from a defined benefit
yes,
to one where you get a fixed payment to help you pay for your premiums.
it's like a defined contribution.
Right.
Yes,
For people,
yeah,
people below a certain age cutoff.
Right.
Do you support that wholeheartedly?
Yes, I do. I was about to say I support it wholeheartedly, which is why I have so much respect for him. He put something on the table to solve the problem, knowing that it's going to be controversial. That's what I like. That's what I do. I put solutions that will solve the problem, not just something that you think you can get past. He knew that it was going to be attacked, criticized, and it has been. But it goes toward solving the problem. In order to solve our long-term spending problem, we must restructure these programs. That's what he does with Medicare.
Now, and people would be paying more money for their health care.
Yes, they would be, well, not necessarily paying more money, because with people, with the decision of how they spend it being closer to the recipient, they're going to make different decisions about how they spend it. A group of bureaucrats making decisions, that's part of the problem. So that's one of the other reasons I like his approach.
Question, are you surprised more African Americans are not supporting you right now? Or do you expect more of them to get on the bandwagon?
First I don't like to answer a question with a question, but based upon some information that we've seen, a lot of African Americans are supporting me.
Okay.
Maybe not 50% of the black community, but I have a substantial number based upon anecdotal feedback, based on organizations that I've talked to. So I have a much sizable support base among black Americans than it may appear to the eye. And it's not because of my color. It is because of my ideas.
Okay.
That's what's attracting people. The strength of the ideas of how we're going to deal with the economy, how we're going to deal with Iran, especially relative to energy independence. The fact that I have said that I will be aggressive in terms of cutting spending by restructuring programs and across-the-board cuts in federal spending, both horizontally and vertically, doing a deep dive in every agency and take out whole programs. That's the only way you're going to do it. And then have a balanced budget, have a balanced annual budget, at least by fiscal 2014, because I'll take over in fiscal 15 rather. 14 would be the first full fiscal year that I will oversee. We have an objective of balancing it that year, but because of the funny accounting that goes on in Washington, D.C., I can't make that commitment at this point, but we will have one that following fiscal year, because when we stop adding to the national debt and we are growing this economy, robustly, then we can start bringing down the national debt.
Just getting back to foreign policy for a second, the last President Bush argued that America needed to promote democracy abroad, both as a moral mission and also he said it would make this country safer. I wonder if you agree with him, and if you think, or if you agree with critics who said that he was defining our interests too broadly, he was too interventionist and too activist, and we needed to scale back in terms of our foreign policy ambitions. Which side of that debate, it's been a long-running debate,
Right.
would you come down on?
I'm on the side of, if in a country, first, we cannot be the policeman for the world. Secondly, I do not believe we should impose our form of democracy on other countries. But if there's a democratic movement going on in that country, I would be willing to support that democratic movement. That's how I would basically.
Do you think the Bush foreign policy struck the right balance in terms of how it defined our national interest in that sense, or do you have a major critique of the way foreign policy was conducted under the last President Bush?
I think, but just based from an external view, I think he struck a decent balance. Yes, but I would approach it where there's a democratic movement going on. We will support that. If a country sitting over here minding its own business and they are happy with what they have, no, we're not going to go in there and try and talk them into democracy.
So you agreed with President Obama on Libya or not?
Okay, Libya. President Obama supported the uprising, correct? President Obama called for the removal of Gaddafi. Just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing before I say, yes, I agreed, I know I didn't agree. I do not agree with the way he handled it for the following reason. No, that's a different one. I got to go back to see. Got all this stuff twirling around in my head. Specifically, what are you asking me? Did I agree or not disagree with Obama?
I was asking if you agree. Craig was asking me about the Bush foreign policy, so I was taking a specific example from the Obama administration that was controversial within his own administration on what he should have done or not done. And I was wondering if you agreed with what he did or if you would have responded differently. It's an issue that's come up since you've been running for office, and I was wondering how you would have handled it.
Here's what I would have. I would have done a better job of determining who the opposition is. And I'm sure that our intelligence people had some of that information. Based upon who made up that opposition, okay? Based upon who made up that opposition, might have caused me to make some different decisions about how we participated. Secondly, no, I did not agree with Gaddafi killing its citizens. Absolutely not. So something would have had to been, I would have supported many of the things that they did in order to help stop that. It's not a simple yes, no, because there are different pieces, and I would have gone about assessing the situation differently, which might have caused us to end up at the same place. But where I think more could have been done was, what's the nature of the opposition?
So you would have sent ground troops, or?
I didn't. I said I would have done a better job of assessing the situation relative to the opposition first before I made other decisions about what we would do.
So many Republicans supported, congratulated him for how he handled that. You would not have been among that group?
I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying I just don't think enough was done relative to assessing the opposition before everything, exploded. That's what I'm saying. I'm a much more deliberate decision maker. It's a point that I keep coming back to. Some people want to say, well, as president, you're supposed to know everything. No, you don't. I believe in having all of the information, as much of it as I possibly can, rather than making a decision or making a statement about whether I totally agreed and didn't agree when I wasn't privy to the entire situation. There might be some things there that might have caused me to feel differently. So I'm not trying to hedge on the questions. It's just that that's my nature as a businessman. I need to know the facts as much as possible. I need to hear all of the alternatives. For example, you might have mentioned that even within the administration, there were different views. I would want to hear all those views, look at all the information, and then I make the decision as the commander-in-chief. So this is the only point I'm trying to make.
So I'm not clear then, what was the parts that you're criticizing the president for of how he handled it?
Okay? The opposition that wanted to overthrow Gaddafi. Who are they? How organized are they? How strong are they? Who would be the apparent leader? Now that they have succeeded, did they have a plan for how they were going to govern? Or are you going to end up now with a country in complete chaos? This is what I mean by...
So, but if they didn't have that, then would you back off and not gotten involved as he did?
It would depend upon which part they didn't have. What I'm saying is, it's not a clear yes/no answer, because all of those things I think should have been assessed. That's what I'm saying.
And you don't think they were assessed?
I don't know that they were or were not assessed. I didn't see reports of that assessment.
Let me ask a quick question. Jim has asked about your support among African Americans. Do you think your support among women has taken a hit in recent weeks after the reports out?
Yes. In fact, there was a poll that said that.
Okay. Just wondering what your sense was.
Yeah, that's my same sense. I think, I don't remember the source of the poll, but it said that my support amongst women had dropped, which meant that they have concluded that the accusations must be true, which is, not fair. I mean, there was no documentation, no proof, yada, yada, et cetera, but that's the way.
But there was a settlement. And there were settlements.
There was an agreement,
Agreement.
a human resources agreement between the association and the lady that left.
If it has taken a political toll, what do you think you can do or need to do about that?
Just stay on message. You're not going to change someone's opinion if they have convicted you in a court of public opinion. So all I can do, and all we can do, is continue to stay on message, talk about solutions, and talk about what I would do as president. Some of them may change their impression, but we are not going to do anything actively to try and change the perception that many of them may have, strictly just from the accusations.
We've only got a couple minutes left, so maybe one or two more
One more
questions.
I have a question. Mr. Cain, President Obama was only a one-term junior senator.
I'm sorry.
And he was only a one-term junior senator.
Yes.
And some say that really hurt his ability to negotiate through Congress, to push his programs and to gain consensus. You've never held elective office. Do you
Yes.
think, or said differently, how do you think you'd be able to be effective with the legislative bodies of the country when they look at you and you've never sat in their seat?
Great question. Great question. I have a great answer. I will surround myself in my administration with people who understand how to navigate the legislative process, to give me advice on how we navigate the legislative process. That's number one. But the most important, number two, my leadership style is totally different. I will put compelling solutions on the table that will appeal to not just conservatives, but many moderates. If we give moderate Democrats a compelling reason to do something, they might vote with us. For example, my 999 plan. I noticed nobody asked me about that yet. My 999 plan.
It's only half an hour. So.
Oh, it's only half an hour. I can do it in a minute, though. That's the beauty of it. It's so simple, I can describe it in a minute. For example, 999. I'm going to ask Congress to send me that legislation in its simplest form, because, number three, the American people are going to be the ones to help me get legislation passed. One of my guiding principles is, if the people understand it, they will support it. So this is how I plan to get things done in the legislature. Not trying to bully Congress. I respect Congress. I respect the institution. But we all know that too much partisan politics goes on both sides. And the way to bridge some of that, in my opinion, is with the aid of the American people. I will not be asking or signing 2,700-page legislation. legislation that I will sign will be legislation that the people can understand. And when the people understand it, they will be that other voice in order to get Congress to work together.
One last question, please.
You're telling us to trust you with the people that you hire if you're elected president. Yet there've been a number of stories on your current team and a lot of criticism. New York Times had a story on your staff being in disarray. I've talked to 3 of your former staffers who have very little positive to say about the current team. Do you have the right people in place right now to win the Republican nomination?
Yes, I do. Now, listen to what you said with all due respect. You talk to ex-staffers.
It's because your current staffers don't return calls.
That's not true. Ex-staffers. It's like ex-employees. It depends upon why they left. Some leave bitter. Some don't. I can't control that. Secondly, the criticism of my organization is from an outside perspective, not from an internal perspective. It is easy for someone to criticize. Now, my campaign has been criticized from the beginning. It's been criticized for not having enough people. We probably didn't. And the reason for that is that I did not want to spend money faster than we were bringing money in. And so if some phone calls didn't get turned in 24 hours, maybe they got returned in 48 hours, and we're improving that now because we have started to staff up. The point I'm trying to make is it's very easy to be critical of a campaign or an organization externally when you don't see all of the facts internally. This is like a startup business that is moving at warp speed. And so naturally it's going to have some hiccups and it's going to have some bumps. That is the natural thing that happens when you're trying to build an organization this fast. I don't care whether it's a business organization or a campaign. And so I do believe that I have the people. And we are adding other people, even as we speak. In fact, I made an announcement today I sent out a press release today about our organizational structure in terms of my senior people. We will be announcing some of our advisors. We've got an energy advisory council. We've got an economic advisory council. We've got a foreign policy advisory council. This is a work in process. And so, but we're working on the solutions while we are building these councils. They're providing us input already. They're helping us to develop these plans. So the external view, I said to someone, I think earlier, it is not responsible leadership to run your organization based upon external criticism, when that external criticism may not be familiar with really what's going on in the organization.
Okay, on that note, I think we have to shut up shop.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Hey.
coming in. We do
Yep.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks. Thank you.